African countries have been colonized for centuries by European colonial masters. However, no one thought of the reverse scenario. What if Africa could colonize other countries? It turns out that this isn't fiction, rather a reality. Africa did colonize the vast lands of what is China today. Yet this colonization was very different and unorthodox than what the world had seen and knows about today. The extraordinary feat of reaching China and establishing a powerhouse there really is a difficult job. But it was different for Africa since its colonization of China was natural, without force. So, when did Africa colonize China? How was that period of rule, and what was its history? Welcome to a new episode of Black Culture Diary, a channel where we talk about less known and hidden Black history, culture, arts, and lost civilization. We scrutinize history here to bring the Black culture back on the surface again. We would like to thank you, the members of our community who have been watching our videos and supporting us. For those who are new, we encourage you to join our community in supporting and building a strong Black history education medium. In this episode, we will explain the Black history chapter when Africa colonized China. Watch this video until the very end to change how you think about colonization, China, and Africa. Let's get started. The concept of colonization is commonly thought of as the act of gaining control over native populations. However, when we explain the idea of ancient colonization involving Africans in China, a new and intriguing philosophical perspective emerges. This interpretation stands in contrast to the modern understanding of colonization, which often brings to mind exploitation, oppression, and the extraction of resources for the benefit of the colonizers. In this alternative view, the ancient colonization of China by Africans is seen as having a different purpose altogether. Rather than focusing solely on dominance, it is believed that this colonization aimed to enrich China both materially and spiritually, contributing to the advancement of its civilization. It turns out that this intriguing notion finds support in scientific, historical, and archaeological evidence that hints at potential connections between these two regions. Let's first look at the scientific evidence. A particularly notable scientific study has captured widespread attention, centering around the origins of the Chinese people. For much of the last century, the prevailing thought in China held that its people evolved independently from the rest of the world, tracing their heritage back to the Peking man in northern China. However, a recent and comprehensive international study, spearheaded by Chinese scientists alongside researchers from various countries, has challenged this prevailing belief. Under the guidance of Professor Jin Li, a distinguished geneticist associated with the National Human Genome Center in Shanghai, this study turned to DNA testing and analysis to explore the roots of the Chinese population. Professor Jin Li's research yielded an unexpected revelation: a genetic marker that emerged around 80,000 years ago in Africa. This marker pointed to a recent African ancestor for those who possessed it. In contrast to the prior assumption of separate evolution, this finding proposed a different narrative that modern Chinese people trace their origins to East Africa. The study extensively examined DNA samples from more than 160 ethnic groups across Eastern Asia, ultimately leading to the conclusion that the majority of gene pools in China can be traced back to Africa. This significant revelation prompted a profound reevaluation of Chinese ancestry. Rather than being descendants of Homo erectus in China, it became clear that Chinese individuals share ancestral connections with Africa. This discovery lends weight to the assertion that Africans were the original inhabitants, with other racial groups emerging as variations over time. This evolutionary process took place after the migration of Africans into Europe and Asia tens of thousands of years ago. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video, and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. In essence, the concept of Africa's colonization of ancient China offers a fresh perspective on the notion of colonization itself. Rather than mere dominance, this form of colonization appears to have been characterized by a focus on enrichment and cultural exchange. Put simply, this colonization was not coercive, where the natives were forced to subjugate. Rather, it's a new shade of colonization where Africans essentially developed the region which is China today. Approximately 5,000 years in the past, a significant wave of African migration reached Asia. It presents compelling evidence that stresses the potential role of these migrating Africans as influential figures in the colonization of China. Their substantial contributions proved integral to the establishment and advancement of a functional and cultured Chinese society. Historical records also illuminate the presence of two primary groups of Black people as the earliest inhabitants of Asia: the Black Pygmies and the Punanese. These pygmies, often recognized as the true black population, and the Punanese, stemming from the pygmies, have left a distinct mark in history. Professor Nick Gear's meticulous historical examination, accompanied by archaeological findings from scholars worldwide, has revealed that individuals from southern Africa embarked on a journey from the southwestern region toward the east coast. Along their path to Asia, these early migrants engaged in trade, leaving a profound influence. In Japan, the oldest inhabitants, known as the Black Dwarfs, trace their ancestry back to Egypt. These migrants from Egypt brought with them a wealth of African knowledge and influence that spans centuries. A telling testament to their presence is the existence of ancient pyramids in both China and Japan, a revelation previously unknown to Chinese and Japanese scholars. In China, a pyramid stands in the central city of Shanxi province. Likewise, in Japan, underwater replicas of an Egyptian pyramid were discovered, known as the Yonaguni Pyramid. These findings serve as evidence of an ancient African settlement in Japan and China. Chancellor Williams, a highly respected figure and the author of The Destruction of Black Civilization, says that black civilization was wiped out deliberately in China and Asia. He points toward two dynasties of China, the Xia and Shang, which trace their origins to the lineage of black Africans. Within this historical backdrop, the first ruler of the Shang dynasty bore the significant title of Black King. Another prominent figure of the same dynasty was Nil, signifying Black Hook. The profound impact of these dynasties is further underscored by their introduction of the solar calendar to China, a testament to their enduring legacy. English historian Godfrey Higgins revealed how Africans influenced the world in his work, Eclipse. He explains two Ethiopian groups, one east of the Red Sea and the other westward. He proposes the existence of a formidable black nation that once held sway over a substantial portion of Asia in a pre-recorded history era. Higgins emphasizes, the origins of all gods have always been of the black race. Historical depictions of divinity often featured traits like a black complexion and woolly hair, emblematic of divinity, what Higgins aptly terms the hair of the gods. Yet that's not it. Black kings have ruled over China, which is proven by the era of the 5 emperors. Among them, Fu Xi stands out. Living 5,000 years ago, from 2953 BC to 2838 BC, Fu Xi is strikingly described as the woolly-head Negro. While a contemporary depiction approaches this, curiously, no Chinese artist has captured his true likeness. Fu Xi's legacy encompasses governance, societal shaping, and groundbreaking cultural innovations in ancient China. He shared knowledge of fishing, animal domestication, intricate writing systems, ceremonial rituals, and worship of deities guiding the supreme being. A recurring theme threading through the narrative of African migrations is the infusion of spiritual principles into the diverse cultures encountered along the journey. This spiritual diffusion finds palpable expression in the assimilation of Buddhist teachings into Chinese culture. Historical accounts recount the migration of Buddhism from the Ethiopian sphere adjacent to India. Interestingly, it is proposed that the very origins of Buddhism trace back to an African figure, a migrating priest from Egypt. This perspective counters the conventional narrative that exclusively portrays Gautama Buddha as an Indian prince of noble birth. Notably, depictions of Buddha consistently bear traits associated with African heritage, including distinctive cornrow curly hair, diverging from the straight hair often associated with ancient Asians. From all this evidence, it becomes clear that Africans did colonize China. However, this was way too different from what we thought. It was more like shaping China, introducing a sense of identity and offering culture and spirituality besides development. Africans had migrated to China and throughout ancient history, left a mark which we can see in architecture, archaeological evidence, and DNA of Chinese people. Did you know this side of African and Black history? What do you think? Was Africa's colonization of China different from the European one? Let us know your thoughts on that. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.